Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're taking a fascinating journey to Ethiopia. We'll be sifting through a stack of recent headlines, news excerpts, mostly from Ethio Eyewitness News. These cover roughly mid-2024 to mid-2025, giving us a real snapshot of a nation on the move. Our mission really is to pull out the most important bits of knowledge, the key insights. We want to help you get informed quickly about all the different things happening. Economic partnerships, cultural finds, social projects, internal stuff too. It's kind of like putting together a mosaic piece by piece.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating is just the sheer breadth of topics these pieces cover. It gives you this multifaceted view. You don't just see what's happening, but you can start to connect some dots, figure out why it actually matters.
Okay, let's dive in. Let's unpack this with some really uplifting stories. First, ones that highlight community spirit, cultural life. So first up, there's this pretty remarkable transformation mentioned in the Diocese of Shader. Apparently, in just 1 year since it was formed, under Abuna Soiros's leadership, it's become a model of excellence. That was reported back in May 2025.
Right, and that phrase, model of excellence, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does that actually mean for a diocese? It definitely points to some significant internal development and a real positive impact on the community there. It must have involved some pretty effective work.
Absolutely. And, on a similar note, thinking about compassion, we saw Zemirit Mertnesh Telehon, she's a much-loved Orthodox figure, hosting this really heartwarming food-sharing event. It was for 2,000 elders at Macedonia around April 25th, 2025. Macedonia, of course, that big charity in Addis helping vulnerable seniors. The report called it a deeply moving act of compassion and community spirit.
And if you connect that to the bigger picture, these kinds of initiatives, they really underscore the vital role that community leaders, religious figures, organizations play. They're often stepping up to address social needs, boost well-being, sometimes filling gaps.
Right, exactly. Okay, moving to culture and heritage. This is where it gets really interesting, I think. Ethiopia just keeps revealing these ancient treasures. There's an article from April 19, 2025, highlighting the discovery of Washan Michael. It's described as a remarkable 4th century rock-hewn church, apparently tucked away in the Yeka Hills, just outside Addis Ababa, and it's noted as one of Ethiopia's oldest. Imagine finding that.
It's incredible. And what's fascinating here is this continuous uncovering of historical depth. It just keeps adding layers, to our understanding of the region's ancient past. And it also connects, doesn't it, to that other cultural development, France returning those prehistoric artifacts back in December 2024. That was a big symbolic ceremony. Shows this growing recognition.
Yeah, good point. And speaking of, hubs of knowledge and culture, you might find this interesting. The Eberhut Library in Addis. It only opened in January 2022, but according to a report from April 2025, it's already established itself as Ethiopia's grand hub of knowledge and community. So investing in the modern alongside preserving the ancient.
Exactly. That blend really shows a multi-pronged approach, doesn't it? Looking back and looking forward.
And that forward look extends to the arts too. The 10th African Sourcing and Fashion Week. That kicked off in Addis back in November 2024. It was all about celebrating Africa's fashion potential on the global stage. Big event. We also saw news about musician Haddis Elemiah, releasing his debut album Streets of Haddis in December 2024. Highly anticipated, apparently. Plus, there were mentions, book reviews for Sergune and Tishuaf, Less Dressed Flower.
Yeah, all these different cultural reports, they really paint a picture of a vibrant, active art scene. It's contributing both, to the national identity, but also boosting Ethiopia's presence internationally as a creative hub.
Okay, so let's pivot a bit now. Let's talk about Ethiopia's economy and its growing role on the international stage. First, there was this spotlight piece on Kiev, and Ethiopia is also looking beyond the continent for partners. On November 15th, 2024, they signed a bilateral agreement with Denmark. It was focused on agriculture, renewable energy, and green initiatives.
That's quite telling, that partnership. It really raises the question of sustainable development, doesn't it? It shows a clear focus on these areas that are absolutely critical for long-term growth and, environmental responsibility.
Diplomacy is buzzing too. We saw the foreign minister, Ambassador Tay Selassie, meeting with the UN's Ms. Rosemary DiCarlo. That was back in September 2024, discussing regional stability. So engaging on the big peace and security issues. And there was news about Israel's new ambassador, Abraham Nagiz, having ambitious plans to deepen Israel-Africa relations, particularly through Ethiopia, increased economic ties, diplomatic links.
Right. And that connects to the profile piece on Dr. Jadion Timotheos, the current foreign minister, described as a legal scholar steering Ethiopia's foreign affairs. So all these diplomatic moves, these economic initiatives, what's fascinating is how they paint this picture of Ethiopia actively pursuing, regional integration, international partnerships, and really strategic economic development. A very active foreign policy.
So, okay, that's the external picture, the economic push.
Yeah.
But what does this all mean for the internal landscape? The news also touches on some more complex internal dynamics. For instance, back on November 1st, 2024, there was that accusation from the Prime Minister's office accusing foreign embassies of black market involvement in forex trade.
Yeah, that's a significant claim. It highlights the challenges, the real difficulties of economic stability, especially with foreign currency. And it shows the government's perspective, perhaps frustration, with perceived external influences on its economy. It hints at a struggle against maybe illicit financial flows.
Then there were reports concerning the media, civil society space. On September 19th, 2024, we saw that author and journalist Azeb Worku was reportedly arrested. This was apparently after she criticized home demolitions in Addis Ababa. She was then released shortly after on September 20th. But on that same day, the 19th, there was another report. This one stated that Ethiopian journalists forced to flee after threats from government security forces.
Those reports together, they certainly raise important questions, don't they, about the state of media freedom, civil liberties. It points to the challenges journalists can face there. And wasn't there also a report back in June 2024 about proposed legislation, something about sparking concerns over privacy and democracy? It suggests an ongoing tension, maybe?
Yeah, the context is important. We also saw news from August 3rd, 2024, the PM announcing talks with armed groups, although the report noted the Fano militia denies involvement. The Fano, of course, being that armed group mainly from the Amhara region. And then later, November 30th, 2024, the Tigray Interim Administration condemned Ethiopian Airlines over a ticket price hike for Axum Festival. Shows regional tensions persisting.
Exactly. These items taken together, they point to these ongoing internal political discussions, efforts to manage domestic challenges, including those regional frictions. That piece on Ethiopia's leadership and the rising tensions in the Horn of Africa from September 15th seems relevant here too. But it is important to note, amidst all this, there was also that report about fact-checking training strengthening Ethiopian journalism back in August 2024. So efforts are being made, it seems, within the country to tackle disinformation, which is a challenge everywhere.
Right. It's definitely a complex internal picture. But, away from the politics and economics, life goes on in other spheres, too. Like Kampala Queens Women Football Club in Uganda appointed an Ethiopian coach, Asef Haile Jebriel, in November 2024. A nice bit of cross-border sporting news. And there was an in memoriam piece for Professor Andreas Sachede, who passed away, acknowledging a significant academic figure. That was September 1st, 2024. Plus, a mention of a guide to Abiyata Shala National Park. Little things that round out the picture. Wow. Okay, that was quite a journey through those headlines. Quite a deep dive from, the amazing community work and finding ancient churches to these huge energy deals, busy diplomacy, and then grappling with these internal political discussions. It's really clear Ethiopia is a nation experiencing just a huge range of significant shifts, evolving dynamics.
It really is. What's fascinating, I think, is how these news items, which seem kind of disparate at first glance when you look at them together, they paint this complex but really compelling picture of a country actively engaging with its past, definitely navigating present challenges, and trying to strategically shape its future on so many fronts at once.
So for you listening, as you reflect on all these different pieces, the economy, the culture, the internal governance, the regional links, what aspect of Ethiopia's really multi-layered journey do you find most compelling? And what do you think these diverse threads woven together ultimately tell us about the nation's path forward? Something to think about.